Hey everyone, I'm Victor Dwyer, and this is the Marketing Perspective Podcast. Today we're going to talk to you about everything about subscription-based stuff for the DTC websites. Today we have Paul Chambers on, and we're going to talk about everything about subscriptions, and he runs SubSummit, and I'm really excited to have him on. Paul, thank you so much for coming on today.
Awesome. Thanks for having me on, Victor. The countdown music was super relaxing. I'm just maybe made a little too relaxed. We need to get amped back up again to talk about this awesome topic because there's so much opportunity in this space.
For sure. Start out by telling the audience really like how you got started into all this. Like what kind of like led you down this like e-commerce path?
Interestingly enough, I've been in e-com subscription world for 25 years. My very first business was a website hosting business back in the day. Since built and sold that, and I've built and exited multiple different companies. More recently, built a company called The Gentleman's Box, which is a lifestyle subscription box of socks and ties and pocket squares. Luckily, we exited that business just before COVID came down because people stopped dressing up a lot more than they ever were, less than they even were before. And I've dabbled in a lot of different businesses over the years, have a pain relieving gel product I help advise and consult with. But my main day-to-day is running a conference called SubSummit, which is the largest consumer subscription event in the world. We bring thousands of consumer subscription brands together end of May in Dallas, Texas, to talk about this space.
Yeah, that's amazing. That's amazing. And starting out, like, what is the primary success when we start talking about subscriptions? What do you see someone that is doing it successfully versus someone that's doing it wrong? What are the things that you see? Oh, this person's doing it right when it comes to subscriptions, and then someone that's doing it kind of what you see doing wrong.
I mean, look at the number one lever to pull is actually caring about your customers and focusing on their needs and the best way to help meet those needs from a brand to the customer. Our theme at SubSummit this year is engage, enrich. And we chose that theme because one thing we're doing as industry leaders is continuing to help lead the industry down a path to create frictionless experiences within the subscription space. You do that by engaging your customers, understanding their needs, and then enriching those experiences so that they stay for much longer than you would ever anticipate if you hadn't actually cared about them. So that, when you ask about like, what's the best way to build a subscription program is looking what those needs are and giving a crap about them and creating a product or service that is going to be valuable. And subscription isn't just what you think it might be. A lot of times people think subscription is, I get a box of goodies every month, or I get, Dollar Shave Club, something or you're just going to keep shipping me something on a certain frequency. Subscription is everything I just described, but then it's layering in membership programs. Loyalty programs are often subscription because they fall in that member category. So there's so many different ways to look at it and build out a high quality subscription.
Yeah. And how can you write some steps, or can you give some steps on what really caring about the customer looks like? Like obviously like the customer experience, but how else do you communicate to the customer saying, hey, we care about you, we want you to be better? What are some ways that you really dial in to say, hey, I care about you?
I think, so there's a lot of different ways. Looking at your customer lifetime value. How long is somebody staying on a subscription that you have? And by the way, you and I, when we met at Shop Talk, we talked a lot about like the supplement space and what people are doing there. And, there's a lot of subscribe and save in this category. And one of the things I actually learned from the Chewy CEO at Shop Talk, and I've dug into a lot more in recent years, is sometimes the word subscribe can have a little bit of fear factor to it. And the Chewy CEO at Shop Talk, he said 73% of their business is on a subscription-like program they have called Auto Ship. And so I started to think about that, like, wow, well, first of all, that's a massive number from their like
Mhm.
73% of their revenue is through auto ship. Second, why did he say a subscription like program called auto ship? And why are they using that verbiage? So I've been digging into this a lot more recently. And I was on a speaker prep call recently with a brand that does like beauty products. And I noticed on their website, they use auto ship. And I asked him, I go, how can you say auto ship versus subscribe and save? And one of his points of feedback was, as soon as we made that change from calling it subscribe and save to auto ship, we saw 40% lift in people, getting into that program. 40% lift over previously just calling it subscribe and save. And I think because a lot
Wow.
of reality of like people are afraid of the word subscribe. And I even like as an industry leader in this area, I'll admit when we started chewing, we got a dog, we were like, okay, let's subscribe to the food that was coming in. I was like, man, why can't I'll just go online and get it when we need it. But my wife subscribed to the auto ship and I was like, okay, well, whatever. And the first week we got too much of it. Like it came way too early. And we're like, okay, we got to change the frequency. Now it's perfectly timed. And so I think, breaking down those barriers of what people's fears are maybe with a subscription program is
Mhm.
something to look at and listening to customer feedback. Going back to your original question of like, what's the right way to build out this program? The second thing is going to be understanding once somebody's in it, how satisfied are they with your offering? My partner Chris George talks a lot about surveying your customers and giving them real simple 3 questions in the survey. It's not even 3 questions. It's how was your experience giving them a smiley face, a meh face, and then the frowny face, the unhappy face. When as soon as they press it's easy. Everybody recognizes those faces. As soon as they engage with one of those, if they select the 2 bottom ones, you're going to want to trigger customer service to reach out to them. And so you're understanding your audience and what they're liking and then you start to layer in other things like personalization, asking people what they're looking for. What do you like? Hey, we're going to do, you can get this shaker this month, or you can get this additional supplement, maybe an, additional component, as part of what we're doing here. Which one would you like? And then you start to see kind of what your audience's preferences are. So, a lot of those kind of boil down to some of the same things, but there's different ways of building that program out. It comes back to the core of like building that relationship with that customer.
Yeah, and where did those ideas come from when you're like trying to say, "Hey, what do my customers care about in my subscription boxes?" Are you sending out a survey? I can't like a lot of people like hate surveys, so like what do you think how do you communicate to the customer and figure out what your customers actually want in their subscription boxes?
Yeah, so surveys help. Quizzes
Mhm.
up front, really, really do accomplish a lot. And there's two
Mhm.
ways to, there's many different ways to accomplish that, but two that I see people trying a lot, they use a service like Octane AI, which is
Mm.
a pretty powerful tool where you can go very basic with like a type form. And we did this on Gentleman's Box, actually. We had a premium subscription that we launched. And in order to get access to the premium subscription, you had to see if you qualified first. And by seeing if
Wow.
you qualify, you're taking a quick survey or seeing how often are you dressing up? What's your style? Do you like ties? What colors do you like? And we would play with different variables. But all those questions they were answering were telling us, like, okay, what do we need to be building into a premium box here? And you can make it super simple for people. Do you like this or this? Do you like this or this? And those things, again, quickly tell you what your audience is looking for. And guess what? Everybody's qualifying when you get to the final page. You're getting the countdown
No
timer,
way.
you know. And so, but the data we collect up front, and we went back and forth on asking for email address. Sometimes we would do it, sometimes we didn't. But we would test the survey, taking the survey to see if you qualify ahead of just like, hey, you can buy it right now. The see if you qualify always outperformed every single time, no matter how many times. And I love testing those kind of things because I'm always curious, like what's going to happen here and what are people going to like? We proved it out right there.
Yeah, that's amazing. You had a good point on the subscription versus auto ship. Like even from my perspective, like when I think of subscribe, I'm like, oh no, like do I really want to subscribe to this? But when I think of auto ship, it's like, oh yeah, that sounds kind of convenient. Like it sounds like okay, automatic, cool, let's do it type of thing. Is
Yeah.
there any other like small, like I want to say either hacks or tidbits when it comes to subscriptions, whether if it's some type of optimization that people can implement? Like, is there any other tips you have there?
So like I like rolling in a membership offering into a subscription and even referring to it as membership. So MeUndies does this where they treat their subscribers as members instead and give them
Mhm.
different pieces of the offering there. Another one I like to talk a lot about is Vinyl Me Please. They're a membership where you get access to a community, you get access to early releases of the vinyl records that they're putting out there, and then you're going to get your recurring frequency of your vinyl records as well as part of the program. And so looking at ways you can incorporate more into there is going to be extremely valuable. The other part to look at is how you roll out like a loyalty program. And I've started talking about this recently and talked about on our podcast the other day. If you remember Starbucks, their membership program was originally like a paid membership program. You'd go and you'd buy the gold card, and it was really cool because you got this like gold card.
Yeah.
And you'd have to like start to do the math, like, okay, it cost me 20 for the gold card and I'm getting 10% off every time. So after 4 or 5 orders, it's going to be beneficial to me. And so now you're creating some friction maybe for somebody to get involved in the program. They then, over a course of a few years, flipped to build this loyalty program, which has been wildly successful and actually way more beneficial to them in terms of not only creating greater consumer engagement, but they are also now self-funded in terms of, you probably see this on various TikToks or Instagrams, everybody's depositing $20-$30 onto their Starbucks card. If Starbucks ever needs money for expansion, or they have that on their balance sheet, money they can pull from and use on there. So they created this amazing loyalty program and also became a massive bank in the process there. Now, we're not all Starbucks and not all able to do that and develop that tech, but start to think about like, what types of loyalty program could I build out that is low friction, high value, and gets people really engaged with my brand. My 12-year-old daughters go to Starbucks now regularly because they want to earn points on double points days. And my wife has completely brainwashed them. And I don't know, but it's amazing to me that, these kids, they pick up on it. The first app they put on their phone besides begging for TikTok, which we declined, was the Starbucks app. I'm like, okay, you can do that. You load your own money on there. You can have your own stuff. If you want to go get a frappuccino or whatever, fine, it's on you. But it gets them engaged. So, there's lower friction ways of doing that.
So it all starts with consumer trust. When it comes to building up a brand and building up that reputation, what would you say to kind of start that process of building that trust? Because obviously Starbucks, they have so much trust behind them. But if you're a new brand, how do you build up that customer loyalty in that following within yourself?
Yeah, well, when it starts at the core of it all has to be a really good program. As people are they're going to see value in. And go back to what we are just talking about with Starbucks. That early one didn't take off as well because people had to think about it and they had to maybe calculate if they were going to save enough and see value in it. And so when they changed the program around, and even in recent years, they continue to evolve it. I mean, it's
Yeah.
amazing. A company so big, they realize like, okay, it used to be I think it used to be every time you make a purchase, you get stars. Now it's for every dollar spent, you get stars. And so they realize, or it might be the inverse of that. See, they haven't got to me enough yet. My daughters could tell you though, but they realize they need to evolve the program to be more valuable to the customer and take that feedback, along the way and continue to improve it. So, building that out in there is an important, step in that process. Then you have to create awareness around it. And there's different ways through that. Do you engage your community? Look to your existing customer base, see who has influence out there right now. And that's one of my favorite ways. That rather than going out and hiring an influencer or finding an influencer to come and talk about your brand, look at your existing customer base and see in there who already has some influence. That's the fastest way through something like that because
Yeah.
they've already used your product and tried your product. And the chances are, if you have a good product, they're happy with it. They're going to be thrilled that you're offering them some free product in exchange for, talk about this program for us. We're rolling this new thing out. We want you to be one of the first to try this out for us. So it creates a little bit of excitement, and then you can kind of create some FOMO behind it too. That's another, marketing method you can start to use is exclusivity. Sign up for our wait list for our program. Be one of the first to try it out. There's a lot of great different ways, depending on your business type, that you can get people engaged.
And you talked a little bit about like brand ambassadors in there a little bit. Do you have any other insights when it comes to building out those brand ambassador, like figuring out what your audience is and figuring out like, oh, this person would be a good fit, to saying, oh, this person already has a following. Let's give them more free product and talk about, because I had certain clients that they were having like celebrities buy their products and they had no idea. And then they would go like, hey, can you like talk about our product? And it was a huge advantage for them. So
Yeah.
is there any other insights you have in brand ambassador programs for DTC websites?
Yeah, and there's so many different tools and companies out there that can help you with that. Everything from IZEA to Impact, these companies that aggregate the influencers that you can find. Even the TikTok creator marketplace right now, very low cost way to get some brand ambassadors, find people that would like to try your product. I remember really early on in building Gentleman's Box, we one day all of a sudden saw like a big influx of orders. We're like, where are these coming from? And I went to Google Analytics and I was looking at the real-time traffic and I see like a ton of people coming from Canada. Like, oh crap. Okay, so this is interesting. What happened? Where everybody's coming from Canada here. And what had happened was a Canadian hockey player, I can't remember what team it was, for the Canucks, I think it was at the time, a Canadian hockey player had gone in and bought Gentleman's Box and just started talking about it on his Instagram. And it was free advertising for us. And so one core problem we had in that moment was we weren't selling yet in Canada. And so we had to quickly figure out how to turn on our online sales to allow for Canadian orders. Figured it out overnight. We're ready the next day. And then we started engaging in conversation with that hockey player saying like, hey, would you, like to tell you what, we'll take care of your boxes going forward. If you post a couple more times, we really appreciate it. It's super helpful. Became close friends and built a good relationship. So that's one way where you start to recognize who's using your products out there. The other way is going out and seeking them. And I like to do that a couple different methods. One, finding, influencers who might be using similar products and asking them to try ours, or try, the other brand, or, like I said, going through your customer list and finding those that, may already be in there that haven't talked about it yet publicly. And there are tools you can run through where you can take your customer list and run it through and it'll show you their engagement and what, if they're worth reaching out to and who your best customers are out there.
Yeah. And there's also a lot of Amazon sellers watching, or a lot of Amazon related people watching. And do you have any insights for the people that, let's say, their subscription company, a lot of their customers are buying on Amazon, and then eventually like the customer might look on their website and purchase there, and then might use a subscription either on Amazon or on their website. What are some recommendations or best tips for people that are selling on Amazon and driving those subscriptions on their website? Do you have any other insights there on how to kind of make that
So you're
successful?
talking about like if somebody's maybe gets a product one off on Amazon and you want to create that auto ship and gate type engagement then?
Yes, on Amazon,
On your
and
website.
possibly figure out how that fits into your D2C website from
Yeah.
a customer acquisition standpoint, like try to getting them on your website or possibly getting them a subscription on your website. Like how
Yeah.
does how does Amazon tie into this?
It's wildly advantageous to obviously move them off to your website because while Amazon is a great way to get exposure to build a business, Amazon owns your customer data still. You don't have access. I mean, I'm preaching to the choir here. You don't have access to the email address and everything else. So, a couple of things, with the Capsiva product that we have, the pain relieving gel, we on all of our packaging put, subscribe and save at capsiva.com. Now, knowing what I know now, I'm going to update that packaging to say like auto ship, relieve pain at your best frequency or something to that effect. And I'm going to be driving those customers to our website wherever possible. Now, we all know Amazon doesn't like you. One, if you're doing FBA, you're not going to be able to put anything inside the package there. And if you are fulfilling on your own, you're not, Amazon still, if they find out, they're not going to like you. So putting any flyers or anything like that in there. And so what I see a lot of brands doing is asking for reviews and, including some note in there that says like, hey, go and give us a review. Really appreciate it. The reviews can drive to your own website. And then from there, you can throw them an auto ship offer. off of that, or doing like what I just suggested on your product packaging itself. So then it's not painfully obvious. It's, you're showing them, get it at your frequency, adjust to what works best for you, auto ship to relieve pain every single day of your life. So finding those nuanced ways without upsetting your parents, I guess you could say, like, you don't want to make mom and dad too mad over there at Amazon, and helping find ways that you can drive them to your website and to your platform.
Yeah, we always talk about don't upset Jeff.
Don't upset Jeff. Even better.
He is all powerful.
Yeah, and that's that's the tough part. I'll be curious to see at what point Amazon starts to realize like changing away from the subscribe and save to that auto ship, and they might already be starting to adjust that. I haven't looked into that most recently. I mean, it's advantageous to have the auto ship on the getting them through, whether it be through Amazon or through your own channel. I always like to find ways to get people back into my channel so you can create that relationship and make it even stronger with your customers.
Yeah, and when it comes down, so we talked about a little bit about brand ambassadors being that a way to really build out and get more engagement across more customers. How else do you get that brand awareness to eventually build up that trust with the customer? How are you reaching out to other customers to get in more subscriptions? Are you using Facebook, Instagram, TikTok? Like what has been your strategy to really bring in more subscription-based customers and get more people into the website to purchase?
Yeah, obviously we've seen a ton of, and it all depends on the product and where the audience lives.
Yeah.
If it's an older demographic, you're going to go to Facebook, kind of that mid-age demographic, Instagram, and a younger demo, and maybe mid-age in some ways. TikTok is a great channel. I still love email marketing. It's still tried and true, has a great conversion rate. And I think what a lot of people forget about is, they think when you say email marketing, they think about like, okay, yeah, I'm going to amass a customer list, offer them a discount, this, that, and the other thing, and then start marketing into them. And we see more people doing that with SMS as well. But you forget about the journey from purchase forward. And where we see a lot of success in subscription is leaning on our community of customers that we have already to be our brand ambassadors and to go out there and share and talk about it, and offering them that sort of referral program or that affiliate program off the rip. And Jay Myers, who runs Bold Commerce, talked about this at our last event last year, SubSummit last year. He talked about what's called the subscription death curve. And no matter what you do as a subscription company, eventually, your acquisition costs will continue to rise. You can only, you'll eventually level off with the number of subscribers that you can acquire from your channels. And then your churn will start to happen. And so it'll eventually, what happens is you start to level off. A way you can combat that is by leaning into your existing customers, your existing subscribers, and asking them to be your best referral and affiliate source out there, offering them incentives like, a free month or a free gift coming in different ways. So that way the acquisition cost on that is significantly lower than any other channel you could have. Because we all know how expensive Facebook and Instagram are right now. Those aren't going to get any cheaper anytime soon. I mean, we see fluctuations here and there. TikTok, while there's some good value in the creator marketplace right now with Spark ads, that's going to start to get up over time. And, organic takes effort and time. So what's the next best way through that is leaning into your community and asking them for that support. If you like our product, the best thing you can do for us is tell a friend about it. And so create a post. And by the way, when you do that, we're going to give you next month for free. And so finding ways to do stuff like that. There's also some cool tricks in there that you can do. I hate to use the word tricks. There's also some unique things that you can do to engage your customers long-term and, increase that lifetime value of their customers. If people tend to churn or leave, let's say after month 6 or month 7, because they either have too much or, they need to pause for a minute for a variety, they're moving or things like that. If your typical churn point is month 6, let's say, and month 5, you include a free gift and say, from here forward, as long as you're a subscriber, we're going to throw an extra item in this box, or we're going to include this extra item with your auto replenishment that's coming out for your renew. And so there's some great techniques there that can help you engage and increase that customer lifetime value even longer. And by the way, the more you do that, the more they're going to be happier and talk about it as well. So some awesome tools and techniques there to continue to grow that at a low investment.
That's amazing. So you talked a little bit about email marketing. It sounds like your list goes like, hey, like referrals being the number one source, like number two, possibly email marketing, and then three, possibly social media channels. And
Yeah.
love to see what that uh if you agree with that list, and if there's any other insights you have with either your email marketing. We talked about a lot of referrals. Is there any other strategies when it comes to email marketing that you have? Love to
Yeah.
kind
So
of hear more about that list.
I jumped off on the subscription death curve a little bit there, away from email marketing for a moment. And thanks for bringing me back to it, because one of the things that we often forget about in that is the follow up from an order sequence. And so once they order, giving them that confirmation, obviously right away, hey, here's your order confirmation, here's your shipping, when it's shipping, letting them know. The other one I see doing, great companies doing, but not everybody does, is when it lands on their doorstep, that email saying like, hey, we noticed your order arrived. If there's anything wrong with it or any questions you have, let us know. We're here for you. And so while you've given them 3 emails, maybe leading up to that, they're not bad emails. They're emails that are helping and giving. So people usually don't get mad about those or don't start to tune those out. Then it's figuring out the frequency based on your product and your customer base of what the next best communication point is. Typically, I like to see 7 to 10 days afterwards, would you mind leaving us a review, letting us know what you think of the product? Reviews are super valuable. We all know that. And so that's another great engagement point. And then after that, if there are other opportunities at the right time, whether it be maybe 3 weeks out, 6 weeks out, if you have the auto renew turned on, then you're going to want to let them know ahead of time. And this is what people are often fearful of, is I don't want to tell my customers when I'm going to bill them again because I'm afraid they're going to cancel. And the right thing to do is letting them know that's coming up, because you're going to continue to build trust. Like, hey, we're going to be billing you again. Here's all the benefits you're going to be seeing from this coming your way. But if you're ready to pause it because you have too much, get out ahead of that before you've upset them. It can be super valuable. And so that type of communication can also come into play really well. So that email sequence, again, it varies per product and per customer, but looking at that email sequence is often forgotten about, because people will set up a shop, they'll get the base, like couple of things set up, and then they'll build a list. They'll be like, oh, I'll send them a promo this month, or I'll do that month. But you have to nurture those customers along the way as well.
100%. That's super valuable. Is there anything else that's really been top of mind for you that you've been kind of seeing on your day-to-day basis that you say, hey, a lot of people are doing this wrong, or some people are doing a lot of these things right? What's been top of mind lately when it comes to subscriptions that you see either people doing wrong or people doing right?
So a couple things in there. One, we talked about that gift with adding into something after when you see that customer churn point. Another way through that is locking in pricing. BarkBox has done this in the past, to us most recently, and it's working really well on us and our family, where they emailed a couple months ago and said, as long as you're a subscriber, we're not, for the lifetime of your subscription, we're never going to raise your price. It's madness to me, first of all.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, like when your shipping costs go up and your product costs go up, am I eventually going to be a loss leader for you? Somebody did the math somewhere on this, and I'm curious. Like, I've been working to get Matt Meeker, the CEO of Bark, to our conference for a number of years. It's not happening this year. It'll happen next year, though, I promise you. And I'm going to ask that question. So, but what they did within there is they created loyalty and longevity on our subscription. Every time Bark comes, I'm like, oh man, do we have too many dog toys? But we've got this price locked in, and we're going to save on this now. So they've done that. The other thing they did in that same instance is they said, hey, by the way, while you're here, your price is going to be locked in. Check out our new dog food subscription and our new, pet vet subscription. We think you might like them. That's all we're asking. We're going to lock in this price. We're asking you to look at these. So they've had the opportunity to introduce me to 2 new subscriptions that they have that I might come into, and that they're not going to lock the price on those ones, but I'm part of the brand. I'm seeing their brand come into our household every month. To me, the BarkBox is, I'm giving them free advertising into my house every single month, because every single product that comes in the BarkBox is labeled with Bark, and I'm remembering that brand. So it's the cheapest, best advertising they can have, because when our friends come over, guess what? There's Bark toys laying around all over the place. And now I just cracked the code and figured out why they don't care if they're losing money on me, because it's free advertising.
Yeah.
But it's stuff like that. The other thing we're seeing is gamification of the cart. I came across a really cool one the other day. Remember where I was telling you about kind of that auto ship type language? The same company did some gamification of their cart, and it was fully custom built to where when you get to the cart, along the top would be a little progress bar would show you, and it would say you are $30.01 away from free shipping, and a little globe there would show like you're almost to the free shipping for when you spend $75. Like, oh man, I want to get that free shipping. Okay, so I spend that extra 30, and then the next one, and there was like a couple little globes along the way that you were working towards on the progress bar. The next thing was a free brush. And I'm not the target audience, but like the target audience, they'd be excited about that free brush. You are now $9 away from a free brush. Like, oh man. Okay. I need something else. There's something else I can get the free brush. You are now $14 away from a free shaker. And so like it's building up, and it's only like $10 increments. And the incremental like $10 on there, they're covering the costs of that tchotchke that they're giving you, whether it be $1.50 or $2, let's say max, probably. We all know what those things cost. But the profit margin they're making on the additional products are well covering that already in itself. And so the gamification of that, oftentimes works really, really well. The FOMO, people hate, missing out on something somebody else is doing. So we're seeing a lot of great techniques in there that are performing magically. And I can tell you the data behind that cart, as soon as they introduced that gamification, saw a 1.3% increase in its website conversion rate. Wow. And a 10% increase in their average order value.
That's crazy.
That yeah.
Wow.
I mean, it's so simple too.
That reminds me of Big Chicken. There's this Vegas place that has amazing chicken sandwiches, and like every time I go up there, they basically say like, "Hey, do you want to add this? Do you do you want to add bacon to it?" I'm like, "I guess sure." And like, do you want to have a side? I'm like, "Yeah, sure." And then like, "Do you want to add cheese to the side?" I'm like, oh, "Okay." Like I just like it's like $7
you're spending $80. Yes, $80 for your chicken sandwich. You're like, how did we get here so quickly? I just feel violated, but you're okay with it because you wanted all those things. You agreed to it. And I used to run a chain of gourmet popcorn stores in a weird previous life that I had. But what I loved about it was we'd have this product. It would be like a bag of popcorn, and you get a bag and a half. It's 50% more for only $1 more. And I loved testing. Like I love testing these types of things that every time you'd ask somebody, you'd say, "Do you want to go with the bag and a half? It's 50% product for only $1 more." 9 times out of 10, they'd say yes. That's what we call a no-brainer, right? And so you have to figure out ways you can create those moments among your audience. You're not taking advantage of everybody. You're presenting with an amazing offer that works for both parties.
Yeah.
And those are the best types of relationships where both are seeing value out of it. You're getting increased revenue, increased to your bottom line, and you're giving them more products at a better price point. And so you have to look for those opportunities.
And I think what happens is it really starts that yes ladder. Like in sales, that's kind of what we talk about. Like when you first say yes to the first like add-on, you're like, you kind of get into a scenario. It's like these people have already ready to purchase. They've already approved. They're saying, yep, I'm ready to purchase. And then so, okay, I'm purchasing this. As might as well get this and this. Like, and then you eventually go, oh, for example, another $8, I get a free brush. Okay, sure. And then you just keep saying, okay, sure. And like that's what I've been doing with my chicken sandwich. But when it comes to subscriptions, it's like the same philosophy of like, okay, like yeah, I want to add this on. Yeah, I want to add this on while I'm doing it. And I could really see that adding up really quickly and being a very successful.
Yeah, and there's so many different ways to play with that and try that in there. Okay, we put the brush in there in the shaker. We saw that people went to the brush level, but they didn't spend the $10 more for the shaker. Let's switch that product out and put in there maybe some additional, an additional item that maybe will move the needle to get them to that point. And so there's a lot of experimentation you can start to do in there to see what works best for your brand and your product.
I want to talk a little bit about customer acquisition products. So this is really big in the Amazon space where like you might have a 1-pack of, for example, a grocery, let's say a bag of chips. You will not make any money on that 1 bag of chips, but your goal is for the customer to eventually buy bulk quantities and buy a 6-pack, a 12-pack, and a larger pack where you actually make margin on. How does that apply within your subscriptions? Do you have a good strategy when it comes to customer acquisition? Let's say if it is a bag of chips, or it could be like a toothbrush where you make practically nothing on the first product, but the goal is to get them introduced to the brand to eventually buy a bigger quantity of that item. What is your strategy when it comes to customer acquisition products?
Yeah, I mean, we know with consumer psychology, when presented with options, that is the best way to walk people down a certain path. I mean, and there's some painfully obvious ones where you have, the three options and it's like best value, most popular,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm always like, but this one over here, is this the one I really want? Because I feel, we know as marketers, like they're trying to drive me down a path here. And
Mm-hmm.
and whether it be retail, when you walk into a store, the products on the front of the store are the ones with the highest margins. When you're at a restaurant and you're looking at a menu, the food that you see with the pictures have the highest margins on them. And because,
Mm-hmm.
they want to drive you to that. And so the same thing works in e-commerce, where if you understand, the consumer mentality a little bit about what products are they most attracted to, giving them three options and saying like, okay, you can have one bag of chips over here, or you can get three, or you can get nine, right?
Mm-hmm.
So there's different levels to look at. Maybe people aren't going to go for the nine because that's too high price. Then they're going to default down to the three over the one because they're going to see better value on that side. So whenever you can have options to present in there of the same product, just at different levels with different discounts, that's always a winning strategy. 9 times out of 10, that's going to be a winning strategy for what you want to do. Now, the trick in there is figuring out what are the best and what's going to move the needle. Is it 7 bags of chips versus 9 bags of chips? Is it going to
Yeah.
12 bags of chips? And so figuring out within there what works best for your brand and the price points is going to be the kind of the magic formula to that.
Amazing. And is there anything else that's been on your mind that's been top of mind for you that you've been really wanting to communicate, that you just see just in general within your day to day that you're saying, hey, I've been wanting to communicate this? Is there anything else top of mind that you have?
I think for us, the consistent message in the subscription industry and subscription membership and recurring revenue space is creating frictionless experiences, like I talked about at the beginning of the podcast here, and then making sure that you're doing right by the customer and not creating a program where you're trying to lock them in for a long term or trick them into renewing again in another
Yeah.
month. It's the exact wrong mentality to have. When you can, as a business, adopt the mindset of, I want to find ways to provide so much value, they'll never cancel. There's an absolute no-brainer. I talk a lot about my Amazon subscription that I have. I couldn't tell you when it renews, and I really don't care what they charge me for it. There's going to be an upper limit, right? And we don't want to upset, Jeff. I
Jeff.
call him
Yeah.
Uncle Jeff, or just Dad, whatever you want to call him at this point. We don't want to piss off Jeff. But I'm getting so much value out of my just Amazon membership as a whole. I'm okay with that. And so, as a business, how do you adopt that mentality, that mindset of continuing to provide value? I did a webinar recently with Walmart Plus, where one of their leads over there was telling us it's important to them to show the savings every year that their members are getting as being a member of Walmart Plus, because then they're seeing the value and they're happy with how much that they're getting out of that type of experience. And so, how can you present that to your customers? How can you present that to your subscribers? And what are the best paths forward on that? That's what we like to talk a lot about as industry leaders at our conference, and continue to encourage that going forward.
That's amazing. Well, unfortunately, that's all we have time for today. I know we can talk about this for 7 more hours and just go all in. Like I know we can. There's a lot more we could talk about. So, Paul, please tell them more information about SubSummit, where to find you, where they can communicate to you, and just find more information.
Yeah, so you can find lots of information about the conference at subsummit.com. It's spelled like you hear it, subsummit.com. We have a lot of great resources over at SubTA, which is our trade association that helps run the industry here. I'm most active on LinkedIn, so you can find me there, Paul Chambers, or on Twitter at Paul Chambers. A lot of conversations and a lot of great engagement out there, and always happy to help in any way that I can.
Thank you so much for coming on. Thank you, everyone, for watching. This is the Marketing Perspective Podcast. Thanks for watching, everyone.